All right, what's going on, y'all? So this is podcast number 3, but we're going to continue going through the 11 laws of life Unchained. We're going to get into recover, challenge, learn, and then nourish. We're doing 4 today. I'm really excited about this one. This is going to be a good one. A lot of things that maybe you haven't heard about, and we're going to dive in. So without further ado, let's get into it. So recover. This is law number 4. And this is just talking about like the importance of sleep. We all understand how important sleep is these days, and there are things that you can do to ensure that you are getting optimal sleep. And a big piece of this is kind of funnels into a different law that we'll get into later, which is light, your light environment, your light system. So one of the best things you can do to get better sleep, to get better recovery, is to get sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. One of my favorite routines, and I've been doing this ever since I moved into this new house in April. We have got a backyard, and so I can watch the sunrise, or I can at least get outside, get my bare feet in the grass, and get sunlight on my skin, in my eyes, and really set the circadian rhythm clock. And that's one of the master clocks of just kind of human beings. And it has a big role in just overall health. And so if you're looking at muscle growth, if you're looking at, physical health, sleep is going to be where you're actually growing. A lot of people think that, you're growing in the gym, but in reality, that's where you're breaking your muscles down. And your body, in order to get stronger, has to repair itself. And one of the biggest times that this happens is during our sleep. Another big system that's working while we're sleeping is the glymphatic system. So this is kind of a lymphatic system, but with the brain. It's where the brain is able to drain toxins. And so if you're not getting deep sleep, if you're not getting REM sleep, the adequate levels, your glymphatic system is going to be, not operating at full capacity, and it's going to be hindered. And the toxins and just, overall things that you don't want to be in your brain are going to remain there, and it's going to be a little bit, it's going to create challenges. Another thing, if we're looking at functional medicine perspective, Chinese medicine, there is an organ clock, and each 2-3 hour sect on the clock is kind of coincides with a organ. So like 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning is your liver. So if you're consistently waking up in the morning around 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., that is possibly a sign that your liver is maybe working too hard and is creating some kind of disruption in your sleep. And then what I really love about this is correlating this data with like looking at your liver enzymes. How's your ALP, AST, ALT? Are those elevated? Are those low? Correlating all these things together gives us a really clear picture as to what's going on in the body. Like, oh, maybe there's some liver stuff going on. Maybe we should look further into that. And yeah, that's I really like incorporating that kind of stuff into my coaching. And so this moving forward into the recovery and like why it's so important, grind culture is running rampant these days. And I want to talk about the seasons and the polarities between the masculine and the feminine, because a lot of guys right now are in that masculine kind of energy. They might not be considered like that true embodied kind of balanced masculine, and they're in that energy of they're doing too much. They're over in their masculine, and that can lead to this stuff that you see on the internet. People just like work harder. David Goggins, I'm not saying that he's there, but like his whole brand is work harder, do more. And that for most people, like he's a different breed. You can't take what David Goggins does and apply it to a normal average person. It's just not going to translate that well. He's got a really crazy capacity. If we do though, if a normal person, take me for example, if I were to try and be in that energy all the time, I would burn out. And I think a lot of you guys would as well. That's why, this 75 hard thing has a really high failure rate, because it's just too much. It's too over masculine that doesn't have the balance and the polarity of the feminine, which I think a lot of people just don't understand and people miss. And then there's seasons too. So if we're talking about me specifically, I'm in a very masculine season right now, where I'm pushing forward. I'm doing a lot more than previously I was. I was kind of stuck in a feminine energy in the sense of not doing as much as I could, trying to wait for things, letting things flow to me, this whole like manifestation energy, which is real, which I agree. But in order to have and to manifest what you want, you need to have the masculine aspect of that as well, which is the doing, which is, okay, you sit in a chair and you meditate for an opportunity or, something to come to you. Then you have to do the masculine, which is putting yourself in the room where that opportunity could be presented. Do the things that'll get you to a place where these things can happen. And then, so we talked about the masculine being overly masculine and that being like burnout city. Contrary to that is the too much feminine, where nothing really gets done. And that's kind of what I illustrated. And that, it connects to recover because the grind culture, overworking, we want to make sure that we're balancing that and we're recovering enough. We're not just constantly doing so much where we burn out. And a fun fact, just, connecting back with this recovery and how important it is in sleep, maybe not so fun, but we're coming up on daylight savings here. By the time this is released, we're probably already going to be in there. And the day after we shift the clock and we lose an hour of sleep, the increase in heart attacks is around 10% the next day, which is crazy, which really illustrates the importance of sleep. And when we miss 1 hour, this like systemic impact on people in general. And then I just want to end this section with a little bit more sleep facts just to illustrate the importance. So drivers who get less than 5 hours of sleep, they have a crash risk. This is like an auto accident, similar to driving over the legal limit for alcohol. So just think about that. Everyone's against drunk driving. It's not a good thing to do. But similarly, crash risks, if you're sleep deprived, you're almost as much, you're the same risk to people as if you're over the legal limit, which I think is pretty crazy. Also, shift work is categorized as a carcinogen by I think the WHO. And the shift work in the sense of, working nights. And this comes back to that circadian rhythm where if that is a little bit dysregulated, if your light environment is not on point, it's fairly harmful to your health. And then this last one. So 1 week of sleep deprivation, which we can say is 4 hours of sleep daily in young, healthy subjects, can produce a pre-diabetic state. So again, in terms of all aspects of your health, physical health, insulin, carbohydrate management, if you're sleep deprived, you're going to have a lot harder time to manage these carbohydrates. And if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to change your body composition, it's going to make it way harder. You're not going to get the results you want if you are consistently sleep deprived. All right, cool. So that was number 1. That was recover. We're going to transition here into number 2, which is, I think this is my favorite one. And this is one that maybe you might not expect. And it's this idea of challenge. And it's like competition. It's getting out of your comfort zone, because we all know this. In our comfort zone, no growth takes place. Because if you think about it, why would it? If we compare this to the gym, you need to go into the gym and create a stimulus that makes your body want to change. You have to do weights heavier than you did last week. So your body's like, okay, we're continually ramping this up. We need to get stronger. And if you're constantly just doing the same weight, your body's gonna be like, okay, we're good here. We don't need to get any stronger because the weight is the same. And the same thing goes with just like your life and overall health in general. You need to be putting yourself into uncomfortable positions outside of your comfort zone so that you can grow, so that you can move forward. And, I truly believe that we didn't really incarnate here to go through the motions or whatever you believe why we're here. I think that, we're here for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it isn't to just go through the motions, clock into a job that we hate, just to make a salary so we can pay bills, just, try to get by. Like this whole idea, it's kind of like modern day slavery of just we work for the big corporations, most people do, and aren't really enjoying their life. And it's comfortable. And this idea of no matter how hard you work, you can have a slacked week, a slacked month, you're going to get paid the same because you're on a salary. And so that breeds comfort, that breeds complacency. And in my eyes, that's toxic. And so the general idea here is to do hard shit. Get out of your comfort zone. And so some things you can think about, simple ones: cold plunge daily, cold showers if you don't have a cold plunge, get into the sauna, push yourself. Maybe if you're thinking, yeah, I'll go for 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes comes and you're like, fuck, like this is hard. Maybe go for 11, go for 12. Consistently putting yourself into situations where you can find the edge and push yourself a little bit closer. So yeah, you're putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable that you can go through. And a big, like, one of the challenges that I get every day is, like, obviously growing a business is a challenge, but I really love the competition aspect of this and like sports. So for me, and just as a man in general, there needs to be some kind of competitive outlet in order to kind of reach your potential, to have that outlet, because if not, there are going to be other ways that this comes out. Maybe if you're in a relationship and you don't have this competitive outlet, you're probably maybe going to compete with them in weird ways that aren't going to be healthy for the relationship. So sports, like, I'm a big soccer guy. I play soccer on Saturdays, Sundays, and I train, Wednesdays normally. So 3 times a week, just to get that like competitive energy out there. As a man, I think is extremely important, and I love it. I've always been a competitive person. Sometimes like almost too competitive, where it kind of gets out of control. But as I've gotten older, as I've become more mature, I find the balance of being really competitive, but also like not getting butthurt if I lose or if I mess up, like not just taking it so personally and so hard. That middle ground where I can get in there, I can really turn it up. But when the game's over or whatever is done, I'm fine. I'm doing good. It's just an outlet. And one thing that I really like about this too is like the actual act of winning, or even just like the perception of winning, can actually increase your testosterone, which I think is a pretty interesting kind of biofeedback. And if we look at testosterone, it's like very correlated with dopamine, with achievement. So if you're consistently someone who is putting in hard work outside of your comfort zone and winning and achieving things, that's going to upregulate your dopamine. That's going to increase your testosterone. And that's just a positive feedback loop. I made this post. One of my mentors tagged me today in Slack. He said, it was like a tweet. It was, instead of sharing your resume for job offers, or if you're trying to look for a job, sharing your resume like we all do, instead of doing that, just sharing your testosterone numbers. And if they're very high, just like that being good enough, because this is actually like partly true. If someone is like above 800, around 1,000, and then you compare that to someone who's at 200, and the job is for something that, maybe a sales position where there's like a natural competitive aspect, or you have to work hard, I'm going with the dude who's over 800 every single time, because I know that they're going to have that competitive spirit. They're going to work hard. They're going to like achievement. They're going to like winning, and that'll only compound the things. So yeah, we talked about competition. So as a man, having a competitive outlet is extremely healthy. If you think about how we evolved in constant competition for mates, for resources amongst other tribes, and many different things like that. So definitely in this modern day, we tend to get away from some of the things that kind of made us who we are. And so some form of competition, I think, is really good, and I'm a big fan of. All right, so the next one, this is learn. So something that I'm extremely passionate about is gaining different skills, is learning different things, whether it's reading a book, reading like a self-help book, personal growth book, a book about a specific topic like mitochondria, or, I am a nerd. I am a health nerd. I will admit that. But somehow things that you're interested, learn a little bit more about it. Because, the brain, our brain that we have, is an extremely important resource, and we should, just like we get into the gym and work our muscles, our actual muscles, we should be working our brain every day as well. And just this idea of how can you be able to offer more value to everyone around you than you could yesterday, than you could last week or last month. And I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of constantly getting better, constantly learning more, especially in my craft, in the holistic health field. What topic can I learn about that I can then transfer into the clients, into prospects, and share more value and give people better results. I'm obsessed with that, of getting better results. And then there's a video that I share with a lot of my people that are interested. And in one of the part is like, my clients' results allow me to live my dream life, allow me to fulfill my purpose. So I take that extremely seriously and I hold that sacred. So, I mean, I love my guys and I will do whatever in my power to get them the results that they're looking for. And part of that comes to this learn aspect of, if I'm not learning new things, then I won't be able to help them to the fullest of my ability. So I'm constantly learning, constantly listening to podcasts, reading books, going to events, working with mentors, asking questions, and just trying to gather as much knowledge as I can so that I can serve my people, serve everyone around me to a better capacity. And there's also this quote that I really love, is from Socrates. It's, I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing. So this idea that, constantly wanting to gain more knowledge, but also understanding that, you know nothing, Jon Snow, right? I think she was very wise to mention that. Because if there's just so much to know, that the amount that I know is like decimals. And I think once you understand that and believe that, it's kind of freeing. And this is also kind of why I believe that curiosity is a superpower, because I'm very curious about just like the truth in general. So that can kind of take me down some conspiracy rabbit holes, but I kind of like that and I enjoy that. And I'm not completely beholden to that, but I like to indulge myself sometimes. But more so in terms of curiosity in like actual topics that will help me. So like in holistic health, like the reason why I am where I am now and like reading blood work and helping men with testosterone is because I was curious, because I was like, okay, what's the next thing that I can get better at to create more value for my clients and my people? And that was like blood work, and then learning all the different aspects of blood work and how to read it and how this marker affects this marker, and just constantly asking questions to my mentors, bringing different blood work cases and being like, okay, like let's look at this, let's go do this. Why are these things happening? Just like trying to get all the pieces to the puzzle. And I think if someone is curious, if you are curious, you are going to want to continually learn. And that is going to move you forward faster than someone who's not curious, who is probably comfortable where they're at and they don't have challenge and they don't have good recovery and all those things. So that was learn. So this next one, we're going to get into nourish, which is essentially, nutrition. And what are you putting into your body? So we'll start with the nutrition aspect, because nutrients, they dictate the language of ourselves. And I say this all the time, if we eat shit, you're going to feel like shit. So if we fuel ourselves with shit, they won't be able to communicate and operate as effectively as they can. And so, in the fitness journey, I started out looking at macronutrients, carbs, proteins, fats. That got me to a certain place. And then I was like, okay, there's got to be more. Then, you look into micronutrients and you start like looking into vitamins and minerals and how do these things impact our function. And if you're looking for performance goals or like muscle building goals, having all of these like vitamins and minerals to adequate levels, your body is just going to be operating at a higher level. Optimal health is the foundation for a physical transformation. So if someone, let's take two instances. If someone has thyroid issues, if their liver is shot, if they have gut issues, they're not going to be functioning at their optimal capacity. And then if we look at someone else, if their liver is good, their markers are all in check, they have good gut health, they regularly have good poops, they don't have any bloating or constipation or anything like that, and their thyroid is within the optimal ranges. Who do you think is going to be able to perform better in the gym and then get better results? It is the person who has their health on point. And this is kind of why I take this approach, why we have these 11 laws, is to get people to as close as possible to an optimal health state. And from that, we can create physical transformation, and we can create more energy. We can create more confidence. We can have better mental health. Everything in your life works better when you are nourished when your health is at a much better place. So as Americans, we are overfed, but we're undernourished. We're eating a lot of empty calorie foods. We're sacrificing our health. Like monetarily, these foods are cheap, and nutritionally, they're cheap as well. So initially in the short term, it might seem like a, better investment because you're getting the same amount of calories, you're getting food for a cheaper price. But down the line, this cheap initial cost is going to cost you down the line with your health. So if you look at it from this way, like the opportunity cost, when my mentor talks about this all the time, is looking at things from an opportunity cost perspective. So if you take the cheap food, what are you giving up? You're giving up optimal health. You're giving up peak performance, operating at your highest level. So let's take those two examples. You are eating cheap food, and so your performance is suffering, your energy is suffering. And what are you losing from that? What kind of performance, if you're in a sales job or something like that, how many sales are you missing because you're not at a good level, your energy isn't good, and so you're losing money, you're losing opportunities that way, compared to someone, if they're really on point, they're dialed in, they got really good energy, they're confident, they feel good, they're getting everyone. They're getting much more people than if you're coming in with, eating McDonald's every other day, feeling like shit, not having good gut health. There's just a lot more at stake than what initially people think of, just like, oh, eating healthy is expensive. In my opinion, it's the opposite. Eating cheaply is expensive because down the line, it's going to create health issues, and you're not going to be able to get out of whatever situation you're in if you're not feeling good, if you don't have energy. Like if you're working a 9-to-5 job that you hate and you're eating shit food, you're stuck there. It's going to be so much harder than if you're nourishing yourself, your body, your mind, than if you're taking this like easy path of convenient food and cheap food, which you might think you're doing it right and staying within your means, and that's cool. That's fine. But if you have these goals and these desires to do more, which I assume you do, because if you're listening to this, you want more for your life. You don't want to be average. And so this is a major pitfall that you need to open your eyes to. And hopefully this is bringing more awareness to this. So I want to come back to this idea that, nutrients and how important they are. So I like to look at things through an evolution perspective. So if we think about it like, we're like cavemen, and then, before cavemen, we were like monkeys, I guess you could say. And then we slowly evolved and become more and more intelligent. And that one school of thought says is that because we had more access to different nutrients, and therefore those nutrients gave us the capacity to grow, become smarter, evolve into what we are now. So from that caveman aspect, you can definitely say we've evolved into much more intelligent creatures. And I think there's kind of a change here. Like strictly looking at our diet and our nourishment, we're almost de-evolving because we're not getting the same nutrients. We're getting cheaper food. We're getting not as many nutrients. We're overfed, but we're undernourished. And this could kind of lead to a de-evolution, I guess. And we can just look at one of the biggest things these days is the testosterone levels. So it's just constantly declined 1% every year. This seems like some kind of I don't know, what would you say, de-evolution or devolution? We are regressing back into, previous versions of ourselves, possibly because the nutrition and our nourishment is not where it needs to be. And this comes in with like technology and convenience and all these things, which definitely play a part. But if we're just looking at the lens of Nourish, like this is definitely playing a part. And within the law of Nourish, it is not just food, because our diets are comprised of much more than food. So you can think of like the information that we're being bombarded with. Is it negative? Is it positive? News. Are you constantly reading the news, and therefore your brain is constantly being fed negativity? We talked about light environment earlier. What is your light environment like? What is your skin signal? What are the signals your skin is getting, your eyes are getting? Is it the blue light and stress, or is it a more full spectrum from sunlight, including the reds and the yellows and the greens and all the things? how are you nourishing yourself outside of just food? And these are a few of the other things that we can start to think about. Okay. And one last kind of fun tidbit. I did a post about this a while ago, and it was comparing like a Hershey's bar and grass-fed ground beef, regenerative, which is like, ideally is the highest quality beef that you can get. And if you look at this per ounce, the grass-fed ground beef is actually cheaper than a candy bar. So possibly looking at it through this lens of like, people say grass-fed ground beef, it's more expensive to get. But if you look at something that is, fairly cheap, but calorie dense, like a candy bar, and no, this comparison isn't foolproof, but it's just looking at this perspective of like per ounce, grass-fed beef is cheaper. And you can't really compare. You can't argue with that because that's just a fact. So something to think about. So that kind of wraps it up. This is the third podcast. We're going over Recover, Challenge, Learn, Nourish, and hope you guys enjoy this. And I'll see you on the next one.